Welcome back to our panelists. Lawmakers were greeted by metal detectors Tuesday, while visitors to Santa Fe's Roundhouse were screened for firearms. This is the new reality for legislators as state police continued their investigation of reported shootings at the homes and offices of elected officials. On Monday, police arrested failed Republican candidate Solomon Pena for allegedly hiring 4 people to carry out drive-by shootings targeted at the homes of Democratic elected officials, as well as for participating in one of those shootings as well, guys. Man, Mr. Pena, who ran an unsuccessful House bid last fall, now faces 15 charges in the case, Ed. And as word of the arrest broke news that the suspect was a former political candidate, what were your initial thoughts? I'm so curious to having you here today.
It was unfortunate that that's where we've come, right?
Yeah.
That we resort to violence. Of course, a lot of it is part of the national vitriol and conversation as it relates to elections, election deniers, and things of that sort. I mean, there's a little bit of energy behind that. I think far and wide our candidates and our elected officials are doing the right thing, and they, this type of behavior by anyone is unacceptable. Mm-hmm. And I think it's incumbent upon the leadership or political and elected officials to speak out against it, just not only when it happens, but to contain their language in a way so that it doesn't encourage that type of behavior. Yeah. It really is unfortunate. I look at this individual and the situation not so much as only a political situation, but a situation that we have problems in our society with those people, you might call them kooks or whatever title may want to apply, whether it's in the workplace or otherwise, who are acting out and behaving this way. And I think it's incumbent upon us as individuals in society to address that, both in the manner in which we conduct ourselves and the manner in which either we ensure that if we see something, we say something. Mm-hmm. And if we see behavior, I'm sure that maybe this individual, Pena, was probably talking to people. He was putting things on social media. So I'm sure that someone was aware of something. And so it's important for all of us, whether we're an elected official or an individual, to act and address these issues in a positive way and to speak out against it and to conduct ourselves in a way that doesn't encourage that sort of behavior. Mm-hmm. Again, there are individuals out there that are going to behave that way. They don't need a lot of encouragement, right. But we as a community need to continue to act in a positive way so that type of behavior isn't encouraged.
That's right.
This gentleman had quite the history,
yep.
So it was no surprise as law enforcement delved a little deeper into his background as to why this person behaved the way he did, because he did have a history. This is no surprise. And of course, to his donors, a lot of people will donate to political campaigns, and maybe this is just a reminder to those donors out there. If you're going to contribute to a political campaign, maybe you should know just a little more about the person you're contributing to.
Yeah, that's a good point there. That's a good point. Senator Ed mentioned his ability to even run. And this came from a judge deciding that he was eligible to run on the ballot, even though Miguel Garcia, who was the incumbent at the time in District 14, tried to get him kicked off. I'm curious, how we should consider what the judge, sort of put out there, saying basically if he's eligible to vote, he's eligible to run. And we dismiss as unconstitutional how we do it in New Mexico by keeping felons off the ballot. How bad does it have to be off the ballot at this point?
Well, the law in New Mexico is that felons can vote if they meet certain criteria, mm-hmm. and they can run for office, but they cannot hold office. This is the really crazy part, I think, and we need to fix that contradiction. Mm-hmm. So there have been felons that have run for the Conservancy District, they've run for the House, right. And still they're not able to hold office.
That's right.
So there needs to be some correction made. Mm-hmm. But I got to say, I think you said it very well, Ed. I think we all need to be condemning this and be role models to the contrary. Mm-hmm. And I am distressed that I am not hearing more of that from the Republican Party, because I think this whole the whole incident, and he was a Republican candidate, and the whole incident shows how election denialism and the kind of violent rhetoric that's been going around, there's a straight line to somebody who is unbalanced, mentally ill. They're going to take it seriously and do something unless there is condemnation for that.
That's right.
And so there needs to be a lot of condemnation for that. I know that if this was a Democratic candidate, I think it would be incumbent on the Democrats to thoroughly condemn
That's right.
this person. And I'm very upset about the whole situation. It's intimidating to people who want to be public officials, who have been public officials, and who are public officials now. You know, and in that respect, it's achieved its goal, I think,
I see.
to increase distrust.
Right.
And create chaos in the political system.
Good point there, exactly. Tom, how do we frame this? You know, particularly the motivation, as Dee Dee set up brilliantly, he clearly has a lot of signs out there about his political affiliation and where he was at January 6th. He bragged about it. He showed up at the front door of 3 elected folks to squawk about the results. If that wasn't a warning sign right there, I mean, Debbie O'Malley did call law enforcement, we should say. She was unnerved enough to, with this front door visit. But are we stepping into a trap here by putting it all on just a crazy person who might be a MAGA, or is there something deeper going here that we need to pay attention to?
Well, first off, you know, just on hearing everything and seeing it all, it's sickening because, you know, I'm a middle of the road person, and I was once registered as a Republican while doing work with Democrats. Right. And to see someone like this, it's sickening. It just is really sickening. And how do you change? You know, you can't change that narrative. You've got to squash the narrative. And you know, when you have headlines like this on all the national news on a regular basis, it's either the second or third story based on what's happening in the Ukraine. Think about that, right? It is just crazy. So, you know, there needs to be. I think both Senator Feldman and Ed Prey have done a great job in just really defining this. But what has to happen is that the Republican Party has to really just reorganize at this point. I mean, they just have to, you know, throw whatever it is in the shredder or in the fire and say, you know what, it's time we start over. You know, they're going to see the results of their mishandling of so many different things at the state level and at the federal level because we're going to see a progressive power play in Santa Fe this year. Why? Well, because you know, to the winner goes the spoils. Sure. But they became the winner because the Republican Party really didn't do their job in really, you know, creating a second party in the state, because New Mexico is really just a democratic state at this point, where we used to really enjoy the bipartisan. Situations like this do not provide any opportunity for bipartisanship because it's so offensive that, you know, it quashes all other conversation of a reasonable conversation taking place. And that's, you know, it eliminates the middle ground conversation, which really gets me upset.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you one bit. Please.
And we need to be careful not to write this off as just it's a sign of the times.
Sure.
Okay, we can't accept this. This can't be the norm. Okay. We have to be very affirmative in denouncing this type of behavior at all levels, whether it's, you know, politically, the political leadership, or otherwise. This is not acceptable. And I always want to be careful with, well, you know, that's just where we're at. No, you know, we can change that. We can take those steps so it doesn't have to be this way. And I think that, you know, I think that's important. You know, whatever has brought us to this point. And of course, we've always had violence in our society. That's always existed. But I think we need to take a second look at how these and why these things are occurring and do our part to change it.
That's right. Senator, for the Democrats that were targeted, I mean, does this reframe their approach to gun control or everything in the legislative session? Does it color everything, either appropriately or inappropriately, to, you know, make people want to jump, you know, through hoops that don't exist? You see what I mean here? You don't want to start making legislation in a panic, you know, but something has to be done on the other side as well.
Well, it is very intimidating.
Right.
And, you know, your number one concern is your own personal safety.
That's right.
And so that's...
Let me ask you a question to interrupt for a quick second, because you make a point here. The information that's available on the legislative website, the addresses of lawmakers, should we do something about that? Does that make you uncomfortable personally if you put yourself And as a current office holder, would you want your address out there at this point?
Well, I always prided myself in having everything open and transparent to the public.
Sure.
We in New Mexico have a wonderfully accessible system in the legislature where, people can have access to their legislators. They can walk into the Capitol. That is changing because of incidents like that. Or like this, and it's really it's a shame, but I don't think it should guide us in policy making. We have to continue to do the right thing, no matter what. But the inevitable result will be that people will not want to run for office, and maybe the wrong kind of people will run for office.
Gotcha.
The genie is out of the bottle here,
Right.
and it's very difficult to put it back. But fortunately, the vast majority of legislators, I think, are dedicated public servants and will continue doing what they're doing.
That's a good point there. I want to pick up on what we started, Tom, the last segment about assault weapons and the call by the governor to ban them here in New Mexico. Just the anecdote from the reporting about Mr. Pena and how he personally tried to fire that AR and it jammed and he used a Glock instead is just so frightening to me. I find that so, I don't know, but it's an assault weapon. And those that support just having weapons of any kind, your own personal use, say, well, it's the person, not the weapon. How do we use the coloring of this to make some movement on here? The man used an assault weapon.
Well, yeah,
to basically kill an elected official.
Yeah, and immediately that person framed the conversation for assault gun, bans, and basically he set the narrative. That's right. I think that, and it's not a one size fits all. By getting rid of assault weapons, you're not going to cure the issue of gun violence. Sure. By creating a 14-day waiting period, you're not going to get rid of the gun violence. It is an inclusive issue, which a key part of it, which I'm glad that the governor has included, is behavioral health. Yes. By setting up these regional behavioral health operate, and I don't know what this is going to look like, but the fact that there's a commitment by this governor to bring behavioral health back to the top of the agenda after it was totally obliterated 8 years ago, is really quite encouraging. And I think that's part of that. It's a holistic approach, which has to include the behavioral health, because it is the person, but it is also the access to the weapon.
That's a good point there. Hey, thanks again to our line panelists. I love it. We'll be back for one final discussion in less than 15 minutes when we talk through the governor's major plans on health care in our state.